Welcome to the Salt Strong Fishing Podcast. Salt Strong has been helping saltwater anglers catch more fish in less time for 10 years and is now the largest and most trusted saltwater fishing community in America. If you want to catch more saltwater fish, then keep listening. If you want to speed up your fish catching results even faster, then join the private insider community at saltstrong.com. Here's your host, Joe Simons. Like diamonds.
Top water lures, everything that you need to know. Hey everybody, Joe Simons, like diamonds.
Hey, Luke Simon.
Like diamonds. Talking about top water lures. We've seen a lot of excitement. Summertime. People like to throw top water lures early in the morning when it gets a little bit warmer. Obviously, spring is that well, but been a lot of talk about top water lures. Also, a lot of questions about when to use them in general, but when to use larger ones versus smaller ones. Talk about treble hooks. Talk about single hooks. We'll talk about silent but deadly. That's the one without rattles. Like there are some times where you want a top water lure with not much sound. There are certain times that you want a ton of sound and vibration and a ton of wabash, kapow, whatever you heck you want to call it. Just a lot of attention. So we're going to talk about all that because I think there's some confusion. I'll also say, maybe to even start this off, people that should and shouldn't use it, meaning a beginner, that might not be the best thing if you've never caught a saltwater fish before and you're literally just trying to catch your first one. I personally would say just hold off on topwater for a little while. I don't know if you agree with that, but we can cover all of that. So where do you want to start there, Luke?
Yeah, we'll start at the beginner because there is this, I'll call it a quasi topwater that actually is very beginner friendly and works surprisingly well. And not many people are using it in saltwater yet. It's popular in freshwater though, and you might know what I'm talking about. But it's basically wake baits. So wake baits, it's a lipped plug that is just very buoyant. This one's just very round. It's very buoyant. The plug is almost like a 90-degree angle, and so it doesn't dive down. It sits right at the surface. It sits basically just on the surface. It's called a wake bait because it essentially gives off a wake on the surface. But all you have to do is cast and retrieve. So with this lip, the water will catch it and it'll automatically do a very tight wobble. It's almost like the walk the dog of a topwater lure, but it's much tighter and it puts off a lot of vibration. And redfish, snook, trout, love it. And one reason is probably because not many people use it; they're not scared of them. But yeah, like Coach Matt, for a while was using these in tournaments. So really, all around Florida on both coasts, and placing in a lot of them by using the wake bait or a wake bait.
All right, so we're talking about topwater lures, not wake bait. So that is slightly below the water. We're talking about everything above the water at true topwater. So Luke,
but not the surface. You get a topwater. You get the thrill of a topwater strike with it. So I will call it a quasi topwater.
You could have said that to me.
Beginners, that's a topwater.
You just want to get a plug for that wake bait in there. So get it, the plug, got it. All kinds of good dad jokes here. All right, so let's talk about topwaters now, not wake baits or any slightly subsurface lures. 100% topwaters, everything you need to know. If you guys didn't like that, pretend like it didn't happen.
Topwaters are going to be a little bit more advanced. So the most popular topwaters by far, especially for the summer, are the walk the dog styles, where the lure just looks like a missile. If you just cast and reel, it doesn't do much. So this requires some skill and it requires some tempo, where you basically have to cast it out, and then when you start twitching it, you do a twitch, pause, and it'll start turning from side to side, and it really looks like an injured bait fish. It attracts a lot of attention, and fish love it. Like for whatever reason, they just seem to get mad at or just think it's an injured prey. For whatever reason, these style lures, the walk the dog topwaters for the summer season, are very, very good. Like Coach Pat did a year-long study where he literally threw nothing but topwaters for a full year. And this was the style that did best in the summer. In the spring, the prop baits, I don't have any here on hand, but the spring season, the smaller prop baits seem to do a little bit better. But for this, the warmer periods, the walk the dog motion is very good. They cast a long distance. They can be retrieved quickly, so you can cover water. And And yeah, even first of all, it's fun too. But when the fish are active, it's definitely the most fun way to catch fish, but it also can be the most productive way as well for tight windows. It's very rare that you can have a good topwater bite all day long, but in general, like especially during the twilights, like that time period when that sun is just about to start coming up, where the sky is starting to get a little bit light, it can be amazing. It can significantly outperform live bait and even other lures during those tight windows when those fish are aggressive. So for that reason, I always have one of these, and at least one of these in my tackle bag. And I usually start fishing before sunrise, and this is what I start with.
And I will also say it's a little bit more advanced. You mentioned walk the dog. That means you need to be retrieving it a certain way, a certain tempo. You also need the right equipment. I went over to my friend's house recently. Won't name any names. But he had a topwater lure on this old rod. Is like an ugly stick type rod, what you would call a wet noodle. And I toss it out there. It's really tough to get a good walk the dog if you have a crappy rod. Like the rod, even the line, everything you have is important when you're using a topwater. You can't just use any old, wet noodle type of rod out there. So you want to talk about that on the equipment side?
Yeah. So yeah, for any lure, it doesn't matter. Having a nice rod is crucial. So the rod, and I made this mistake for many years, and I know a lot of people do, where we put so much focus on reels, where we get a reel, and then that's okay. Step one, I'm going to get this reel, and then like the afterthought is what rod I'm going to pair with it, and that needs to be flip flop. Most of the budget should go toward the rod for sure, and the type of rod. All rod manufacturers are different, obviously, and even like the medium powers or medium light or medium heavy or fast action, rod or fast, all that stuff. It's not standardized, so unfortunately, you can't say like, hey, just go out and get a medium power rod with fast action, because every rod brand is going to have a little bit different, feel and flex. But in general, a medium power, fast action spinning rod is a great fit for topwaters. The ones that are really tough are like the medium light, like moderate fast, where it just has a very slow release. If you don't have that quick release, you have a hard time getting these walk the dog lures to do the proper retrieve. It needs to be a quick hit, let go, quick hit, let go. Those like fly rod styles where it's a very slow arcing rod, it's going to be very tough to get the right action.
Cool. All right. So we've talked about beginners versus intermediate advanced. We've spent a little time talking about what we call the traditional walk the dog lure. Let's talk about the other types. And you can take this wherever you want to. Obviously, that's the predominant one. Even in freshwater, that was similar to the profile we used. What are the other types that you use and why?
Yeah, another type that's probably the next most popular are the cupped face. So like chug bug is a popular one. We have those in our store. They're not nearly as popular as the walk the dog. They do work. The reason why I don't use them much is because they require a much slower retrieve. When I'm throwing topwater, that's going to be the time period where I'm all about, I want to cover as much water as fast and as easy as I can. Because again, that's when they're biting the most. And during those high activity periods, it's whoever can cover the most water the fastest is going to catch the most fish 9 times out of 10. And so those pop style lures, I don't have one here because I don't use them much, but it's basically, it's a similar style it's a similar look. It's a bait fish, silhouette, but the front has a concave mouth. And so when you pop it goes straight and it spits out a little bit of water. So you're basically, every time you pop it, you're fighting the water. It's a little bit more drag. Whereas the topwater glides, so there's very little drag, and for that reason, you just simply cannot retrieve those popper style lures nearly as fast.
And why the spitting of the water? Why the popper in general? What's the science behind that, and certain types of species or times a year or what?
I wouldn't even guess to know. All I know is when I've tried using those and pair it against the walk the dog style, I just catch more fish with walk the dog. I have no idea the science or the reason why.
I assume just because it's trying to cause more commotion and just more attention to it. I mean, because it is.
Yeah, a benefit is that it is it is easier for the fish to catch, as for all of us who've used walk the dogs, it is going side to side. And so when fish, especially redfish, they're not designed to hit on top. Their mouths are essentially aimed down. So for this style that goes back and forth, fish do miss it a lot, which is fine. Like I just love the thrill to strike. And usually if they have a miss, they'll go back and hit it a second time. But for redfish in particular, if you do have a lure that's just going straight, a topwater lure that's on the surface going straight, they can catch it more easily. They almost always come up from behind, and so when that lure is going just one direction, that they're much less likely to miss it. So that would be the benefit. Again, the con though is that you just can't cover as much water.
Makes sense. And speaking of just sound and attention, let's talk about the silent but deadly. When would you use that? And what I mean is that's a topwater lure that doesn't have any sort of rattles or anything inside of it that's making any sort of noise and commotion.
Yeah, so we make those now. So the silent but deadly is when it's best when the water is very calm. So like I was living in St. Pete for 4 years, and then 4 years in Tampa before that. So I fished a lot of Tampa Bay. Although I do travel a lot, Tampa Bay has a lot of fish, but it has a lot of very smart fish because there is a ton of fishing pressure out there. And so if something's not normal, they're spooked. Like I even started going down to like 5-pound braid because the 10-pound braid was spooking fish. They're that spooky. So on a calm morning, I was realizing that the traditional topwaters really weren't working all that good. I could literally see the redfish spooking off when the lure was like 5 feet or more away. Like on a calm morning, it's just something that is making a lot of commotion, isn't natural. And for high pressure areas, those fish are not going to like that. They're going to know something's wrong, danger's in the area, so that they're not going to eat. So what I started doing is hey, let's get this moonwalker and glue the rattle to the side or basically glue the rattle in place so that we have the same weight characteristic. We have the same motion of the water, the same casting distance, but we have no noise, no rattle, no metal clinking noise. And this, when I do testing, I've done multiple times where I do 3 casts with the silent but deadly, 3 casts with the regular. On the calm days, the silent but deadly gets the most action. And then on the windy days, when the water is a little bit churned up, the fish are less likely to get spooked, and they need that extra vibration to actually find their prey. And obviously, the noise isn't quite as loud. It's like camping on a night with like a bunch of dry leaves, like a little squirrel walking outside the tent. Sounds like it could be something big. But if it's really windy, you won't even notice it. It's the same thing for fish and rattles. So if it's really calm and you want to get a topwater bite, generally when it's really calm, I recommend against topwaters. But if you do have something like this, where it's a topwater without the rattles, it's very productive. The fish don't get spooked by it. It does create enough attention to get, it does create enough wake on the water to get some attention, but it doesn't have that clack noise that, again, great for churned up water, not good for calm water. If you're fishing in areas without much pressure, I know we have a lot of members in Louisiana and just areas without as much development, then yes, you can definitely get away with rattles on the very calm mornings. But in the high pressure zones, that's when it's very, very important. If you want to have fun topwater action on the calm mornings, get something like this. The Moonwalker Silent but Deadly, probably SBD, is my favorite, but I'm sure there's others out there.
Cool. Yeah, you mentioned camping, so I'm wondering more on a personal level, would your wife, because I know you guys did a lot of camping, would she say that you're more want to like blast the tent and make a lot of noise, or are you more of a silent but deadly guy and kind of just thinking the tent up?
Depends on what was for dinner. Yeah.
It's a trick question.
Good question, though. Fair question.
Yeah. African or European swallow? There.
But like topwater. So summertime, summer and fall are my favorite two months. Actually, spring's awesome too. But the summertime bite, like for that short window during twilights, topwater is amazing. It's fun, and most importantly, it is very productive. It catches quality fish and quantities during that time span. But once that time span's over, you need to be quick to switch to something subsurface.
I like it. Cool. Let's talk about the hooks too, because that's come up quite a bit. The old school topwater, like what we were throwing as youngsters, always had treble hooks, right? We thought you always had treble hooks. You don't want to miss a fish. And now we've changed a little bit as we've become older and wiser. Why the single inline hook versus the big treble hook on topwaters?
Yeah, so there are multiple reasons. So we can go, and they all have pros and cons, right? There's trade-offs with everything. So the biggest reason that I have eventually gravitated towards going with single inlines is that I find myself getting more strikes with them. I'm getting more strikes and less hassles. So, and I think a reason for the more strikes, other than the fish not being able to see, one hook as well as they could 3 underneath the lure, is that there's just less drag on the water. Like literally after doing some tests, I'll use this versus like a skitter walker, one of the topwaters that I used to really like, and just doing the walk the dog for 2 hours straight. It's a noticeable difference on the lure that has a single inline hook compared to the treble hook on water drag. Because think about how many twitches you make over a 2 hour period, and just those extra 2 barbs or extra 2 hook appendages that are sticking out. First of all, it snags more debris, like especially the grassy areas. Granted, I don't use treble hooks anymore, but in grassy areas, treble hooks are a nightmare because they will literally snag everything on the surface. Whereas the single inlines, yes, they will snag some grass, but obviously it's way less, right? 1 point versus 3 points. But the most importantly, the biggest point is that, especially for the topwaters that do the walk the dog that require a nice action, is that the smaller amount of water drag from the single inline hooks allows the lure to have much cleaner and smoother darts, right? It actually glides, so it'll cover more water, it'll just get more attention, and so therefore you get more strikes. And again, also less time pulling off weeds and debris, even bad casts that end up in the mangroves. I get a lot of these out with the single inlines. When you get a hook with 2 trebles in the mangroves are very good about holding on very tight to those things. Another benefit that is a surprise benefit is my average catch size has definitely gone up when I transition to the inlines, and even when I'm doing tests that inline versus treble. And I believe a reason for that is because the smaller fish miss. So the obvious con of single inlines is that you're going to miss more strikes, right? It's impossible not to miss more strikes. You only have 2 hook points versus 6. So that's a given that's going to happen. But in general, the fish that are missing, they're the smaller fish that can't get the whole lure in their mouth. Like if you hold on to the lure and you set the hook, with inlines, you're going to get hooked. Like you don't do that. Kids don't try that at home. But a smaller fish that can't quite get the lure in its mouth, these 2 inlines are less likely to snag the fish. Like a lot of times you end up getting like a 12, 14 inch trout that you actually catch with the trebles, whereas the inlines, they would pop it and miss. And I've had countless times where that's happened, especially with like ladyfish that are very aggressive, where there'll be a smaller fish that are popping at my plug with single inlines, and they can't get it. They can't get hooked, or I should say that they could, but they usually miss. And that's a good thing, because what happens is a bigger fish will hear the commotion and come up, and it sees something that's like an easy prey, and it'll immediately go up and grab it, right? It already sees another fish trying to eat it, so its fear of any issues is basically gone. So again, I had countless times where the small fish are pecking at it and missing, and then all of a sudden a giant fish will come up and they don't miss, right? And a big fish, when they grab it and you set the hook, you got them. So yes, with single inlines, you will absolutely miss more fish, right? There's no argument there. But again, most of those misses are the smaller fish. And in my opinion, there's nothing worse than if you're on a good trout flat, trout are very finicky, and big snook. If you're on a very good flat and you catch a little 14-inch trout that's now creating a bunch of commotion, it'll actually spook any big fish in the area. It would have been a whole lot better if that smaller fish that was hitting missed, and now you can actually catch those big fish.
I remember
long way of saying that the single inlines will absolutely have a higher catch size.
I remember one of the first times you started using them, and I was like, yeah, whatever, meaning single inlines. And I was still using trebles, and it was an early morning, and we were in Port Charlotte area, and I was reeling in fish after fish, but they're all little dinks. And you ended up catching way more like overall bigger fish. And I was sitting there doing surgery half the time. Like, you're making multiple casts and getting, like, all of a sudden we saw a big school of nice fish and you're catching them. And I'm sitting there with my pliers doing surgery on these stupid little, it was trout ladyfish, small ones. And it's so frustrating. All of a sudden one gets off and it pops and it hits it on the side. Now you're doing surgery again. So I could argue too that you spend a ton of time doing surgery, and obviously not great for conservation either when you're keeping fish out that long and, ripping their lips off because they got, 3 hooks here and 3 hooks or 2 hooks over here. The other one is when I went to Costa Rica last year, there was 2 different times we were going after, marlin and yellowfin tuna. And there's 2 different times where we got in these schools of yellowfin tuna. It's just so epic if you've ever seen that. And the first mates there, they were up on the front, just throwing out these poppers and topwaters, and all of them had single inline hooks. A bit, those massive BKK, really, really thick ones. And I was talking to him, he's like, oh yeah, we don't ever use treble. Like, we want that just one awesome hook set on a yellowfin tuna makes sense. Like, we don't even want to risk it having treble hooks. So it definitely makes sense when you're starting to target bigger fish, which I think most of us would prefer to catch bigger ones if we could. So one more reason to do it.
Yeah, and for topwater especially, like I do single inlines for all plugs now, subsurface and topwater. But for topwater especially, I mean, the thrill of it is getting those topwater strikes. And so I'm all for some strikes and misses. Obviously, again, most of the misses are small fish, but even if a big fish misses, like a big redfish, again, that lure is going side to side. Redfish will oftentimes miss, but when they do, 9 times out of 10, they come up and hit it again, and they hit it with a vengeance. So I love that. I'm cool with a couple misses, and then you'll, after a miss, keep doing the retrieve. Don't change it. All right, whatever fooled them first will probably fool them again. And what you'll find is after that miss, keep doing that same retrieve, and that bull red will come up and submarine attack it. Like, it's, to me, that's the thrill. The second hit is always more aggressive than the first. So yeah, for again topwater, if I miss some, that's fine. I'm really just trying. I'm doing catch release anyhow. But again, the biggest reason though is really for the just getting more strikes and then having a better overall catch size. And I'll say another bonus of the inlines is the obvious one is just safety, right? Just safety for us. And I even take my dog out a lot. So safety for Otis. So far, he hasn't been hooked, nor have I. I've never had a barb go in my hand. And if you look through social media and you see those pictures where people get like fully hooked with the barbs in, it's mostly treble hooks. And again, it just makes sense, right? You have more hook points out, and usually the issues are with the small slippery fish like ladyfish and small trout. That's when I've seen a ton of people get hooked because they grab it and their guard's down because it's not a big fish, and they want to get rid of it so they can go out and catch a bigger one. And the fish will make a thrash, and all it takes is one head shake when you're not paying attention. And now you got another treble hook in your hand while the fish is still attached to the other one. That's like the worst possible scenario. So going single inline will significantly decrease the risk of actually getting hooked. So that's an extra bonus benefit.
All right. So we talked about the what's, just kind of the overview of topwaters and the different types. We even talked about when to use them. And to kind of recap, early morning, basically twilight, right? When the sun's not up. Fish are very similar to humans. They don't want to be staring straight up into the sun. So topwaters in general, you're going to do way better before that sun comes up and after, or even very overcast days. Luke, you mentioned if it's super calm, in general, you prefer to throw one without rattles. Like, what's that ideal? Let's just assume it's like 5 a.m. or 5:30. Sun's about to come up, so you can see everything. What's like that just dream environment? What are you looking for? Is it a certain type of wind, or is there a little bit of waves there? What are you looking for?
Yeah, I like a good 10-mile-an-hour wind where there's a good amount of chop, and then fish the wind blown points. In the summertime, the hungrier fish are generally going to congregate on the windy zones with a little bit of wind activity. because they just have an advantage, right? A lot of the bait gets pushed by the wind up close to structure, whether it's oysters or mangroves or seagrass or whatever. Ideally multiple forms of structure in one spot. But yeah, there's going to be more prey that's getting pushed towards the structure, and with that extra water movement, the prey can't see as well. So it's just easier pickings for the predator fish. So yeah, my least favorite is flat calm. I used to work weekends, time to fish. And if I saw that it was going to be like really calm out, I'm like really excited because it's more comfortable to be out when it's really calm. You're not going to get beat up crossing bays. But the fish are way more, especially in the high traffic zones, the fish are way more spooky to the point where, again, if it's under 5 miles an hour, I'm like, oh man, this is going to be a tough day. But if it's a solid 10, like 10 to 15 is kind of my ideal. Then I'm throwing Topwater with rattles and then covering tight to structure, wind blown structure during the summer. And again, short window, you'll know it wants to stop. You can see on the water, there'll be even the mullet in the area don't look quite as scared, right? They're kind of, once they start kind of slowly moving around, topwater bite's probably pretty much over. And then lately I've been going to, again, this is kind of topwater, kind of not, but this is another lip plug that I started using. I call the skinny lipper, where it floats, but it has that small lip. So when you twitch it, it goes down. This is basically what I use to kind of extend that topwater bite a little bit, where it'll switch. You twitch it and it goes down about 6 inches, and you can let it float up slowly. That'll help entice those fish that aren't quite as aggressive to like chase down a fast moving lure, to still go up and get a good topwater strike.
Let me guess, you drive a hybrid truck.
Perhaps.
Do you?
They got the old EcoBoost F-150. Yeah,
I knew it. This whole conversation, you keep trying to be hybrid. We're talking top water, above the water, and you keep trying to talk about these intermediate ones.
I'm just talking about topwater strikes.
Lightning there. This topwater, right when you said strikes. I don't know if you're only a mile or so away from me. Did you hear that?
I just heard the thunder just now. Ooh. Yeah, I'm about 3 seconds behind you.
Man,
to me, it's all about the thrill of topwater strike. It's just amazing. And in saltwater fish too, I know a lot of listeners are live bait only, which is fine. Live bait certainly works. I would never say it doesn't work. But saltwater fish, I grew up bass fishing, and for whatever reason, I use all lures for bass and was get pretty good at it. But for saltwater, I would leave my normal lures back, and I would get up my cast nets and like literally spend that twilight period catching bait, and then I would black out the live well and then start fishing. But like now, I mean, it's to the point where that 1 hour, that I used to be catching bait, when throwing a topwater plug, I could catch more, in many instances, more redfish in that 1 hour than I would in like 6 hours of live bait after the sun came up. So summertime fishing, that the middle of the day gets tough, especially once it gets hotter and hotter. That sun's shining down, it's heating the water up. The hot water has less dissolved oxygen, so the fish, dang, I had a big lightning bolt right there. So
we're on a lake and Luke's across the lake and I literally saw it. That's crazy. And then I could hear it on your thing. That was wild.
But yeah, so the topwater plugs, if you use that window, I guess I'm just kicking myself. For many years, I was using that twilight time to catch bait. And then I would like hammer out the hot part of the day to like try to eke out some fish. Obviously live bait's going to do better in the heat of the day. But that window of twilight, to me, that is the absolute best. Especially if you like topwater strikes, that's the best window by far of the year. That summertime, morning twilight, that hour or hour and a half time span, topwater is amazing. Absolutely amazing. And so I'm kicking myself for missing that for like 10 plus years. I never did it. Right? We never did it. We never thought about it because we thought we had to use live bait. So I'm obviously advocate for live bait. Nothing wrong with it. But for those, if you want to get a topwater strike and you haven't heard or felt that action, summertime mornings is the time to do it. Even before work, I used to do it when living in Tampa. I would just swing by a park that had some rocks and oysters along the shoreline, just get out and wade for 30 minutes and caught some really good fish in a short span. Then pick up, put the wading boots in the bed of the truck and go to work. So
you've touched on the wear a little bit. You mentioned points like oyster bars? You just said, like a jetty essentially. Are there certain depths or certain areas that you love to target, and even areas that you would say, hey, like don't ever do topwater here, like maybe like skip underneath docks or something like that?
Well, yeah, I mean, docks are great too. So basically a shallow structure that's close to deep structure. It's, if we have the fishing school, if you haven't done the fishing school, make sure to do it. It's saltstrong.com. You'll see in the hamburger menu, a place, the fishing school, it goes through how to find spots and it changes based on the season. So in the summer season, a lot of fish, they like to feed up in the shallows. So shallow structure during the night periods and in the twilights. But then once it starts getting hot, they either will push up under trees along the shoreline, if you're in a mangrove zone, up under the trees at the higher tides, and oftentimes more frequent, they're going to push out into some deeper water, as long as there's some deeper structure they can access safely. And safely meaning without dolphin or humans coming across them. So I love areas. That's why I love the 1 foot contour line and smart fishing spots, where I like to find shorelines that have multiple forms of structure. So oysters, seagrass, mangroves, docks, rocks, whatever, right? Anything other than flat sand is good. The more the merrier. But I like to have it on a shoreline, because snook and redfish really prefer shorelines, whereas just trout are further away, and the bigger trout will be holding with the redfish. But so multiple form structure that's close to a shoreline, but also close to some deep water that has some structure as well. So like dock lines, like obviously docks, they go from the shore all the way out to deeper water. So I use that 1 foot contour to try to find some areas where there's shorelines with structure that also has like 5 feet or more of depths that's relatively close to the shoreline, say 100 feet out or whatever. Just somewhere that's easy access, where the predator fish can go safely from deep to shallow. So hope that makes sense. But ideally, bonus points right if that wind is pushing up against it. And so, yeah, that smart fishing spots, another thing I wish I had access to a long time ago, where you can see the 1 foot contour lines transpose on top of satellite imagery, and then have the oyster bar layer where it highlights the oyster bars. And you literally just see, it's like so easy now, where now you just see what the wind's going to be doing. And then you just, okay, I know which way the wind's going. I know which way the current is pushing the water. And if you have the current flow from the tides and the wind pushing up against a shoreline with multiple forms of structure, it's like, boom, there's where I'm going. And so that smart spot system just makes all that so much easier than ever before.
Excellent. Well, that was great. Maybe we should call it before we get struck by lightning here.
It's looking pretty gnarly out.
It's heating up. Another reason you learn how to use lures, you can be done before the heat and the afternoon crazy storms that happen. So, I mean, heck, last week, we'll have some of that content coming soon. We were there in Port Charlotte, Boca Grande area. And yeah, we had a little crew. We were catching slams before 8-something in the morning. It was so awesome before it got hot, before you had to put sunscreen on, all that stuff.
Yeah, one last tip for those who stuck around the end. So the topwater specific, typically the twilights are best, but also before storms. So that trip we had a big storm, a big front pushing through. In the afternoon, we didn't get out. We finally got out around like 3:00 p.m. and a storm was pushing in. So we had dark clouds starting to come in, and that triggered a really good topwater night. So we got multiple trout over 20 inches, and they were smacking topwaters technically in the middle of the day. But again, when a front or something different pushes through, it can trigger a good bite, and that's when you want to have a topwater plug ready for action, because it's fun and very, very productive during those time spans.
Yep. Cool. Well, you can get all the topwater lures you need over at fishstrong.com. Insider members save 20% or more. We got a new travel rod. Check that out if you haven't gotten that. Was that 50 or so bucks off? I think it was 40, 50, and the new slot machine's $100 off. So we got so many more discounts. I met someone recently, and they're like, "Oh, I didn't even know you guys had all these discounts." They remember. I was like, "Yeah, dude, like you're saving a ton of money." So make sure you go to fishstrong.com, logged in as an insider member, and you'll see all those discounts there automatically unlocked for you. And if you're not a member, what the heck you waiting on? Someone to take you by the hand, show you where to fish, and save money on tackle? Come join us at saltstrong.com. The Insider Club is where it's at. We're just trying to make fishing simpler, right? Everyone's busy. Everyone's got a ton of stuff going on in life. And there's nothing worse than spending all this money on tackle and equipment and boats and kayaks to go out there just to get skunked and frustrated. And we know because we did that. And so that was the whole reason we created this club. We want to empower you. You become the hero, catching more fish, filling your phone up with fish pics, and going home with a big smile on your face with all that confidence, catching a fish and impressing the wife, kids, coworkers, etc. So that's all at saltstrong.com. Anything else, Luke?
Yeah, one more thing. If you do want to get into topwater and you're serious about it and you want to have the essentials, is we have a Topwater Mastery Bundle, and it's still available. This is limited time where you get 3 lures for the price of 2. So you're going to get the two moonwalkers, the two moonwalkers, the regular with the rattles, the silent but deadly, and then also you'll get the skinny lipper that I referenced as well. This is that top diver. This is the one that extends the topwater bite that Joe doesn't believe is topwater, but it'll help you get the top
hybrid.
strike.
It's a hybrid.
Yeah, so it's great where you basically buy 2 and then you'll get the extra topwater for free. So it's a limited time only at that pricing. And members, you get that plus 20% off of the 2 you pay for. So it's called the Topwater Mastery Bundle at fishstrong.com.
What if I wanted 2 for the price of 3? Huh?
You can always do that.
Okay, I got you. All right, guys, we appreciate you listening in, and please subscribe to the podcast. If you're watching this on YouTube, subscribe, leave a comment. We love hearing from everybody. We appreciate you big time. We'll talk to you on the next episode. Peace.
Yep.
Want more fishing tips, shortcuts, and tools so you can catch more fish per trip? Then head over to saltstrong.com now and join the movement. Tight lines, and thanks for listening.